Hey guys, so we just got back from a week in Tofino and I just kind of wanted to make a video sharing what we got up to with our 2.5-year-old, because when I was kind of researching for the trip, it was kind of hard to visualize what's actually doable with the toddler. And yeah, we had a great time. So let's just get right into it. So the first day we took the ferry from Horseshoe Bay to Nanaimo, and then the drive from Nanaimo to Tofino is about 3 hours. So we tried to time it so that our toddler's nap would start right around when we got in the car, and it actually worked out pretty well. He slept for the first half of the drive, and then we just actually did it with just one stop. We just stopped at a little rest stop called Taylor Arm. It was along Sprout Lake, I believe. It was just a short little hike down to the lake shore. It was really nice, just to stretch our legs. And then we pushed on to our Airbnb. So we stayed in the Jensen Bay area, I think it's called, which was super nice because it was walking distance to both Cox Bay and Chesterman Beach. It was right along the multi-use path, which you can walk, bike, anything like that. The first night we arrived at just after 7, so we pretty much just made dinner, settled in, and we never actually left the house that evening. So our first full day in Tofino, which I'll just call day 2, we just got right into it. Last time me and my husband had been in Tofino, which was during COVID, Hot Springs Cove was actually closed, and we really were sad that we never got to visit it. So this time we decided to just splurge on the seaplane because we didn't want to have to deal with the 2 to 3 hour boat ride to get there with the toddler. So we decided to go with Tofino Air. It was approximately $375 per person. It came to about $1,260 for the 3 of us. You do have to buy a ticket for anyone over 2. If they're under 2, then they're just considered a lap infant, but anyone over 2 has to have their own seat. That's the same across all the airlines there. And overall, it was probably one of the best days of my toddler's life. He loved it. We had a really good time. The views were amazing. The weather was amazing. The flight's only about 15 minutes, and then you arrive at the end of a boardwalk. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. So the hike was about 2 kilometers each way, and we only actually had about 2 hours between when we were dropped off, which was around 11 a.m., and then we were being picked up at 1:45. So we had to be back around 1:30. So I guess it was about 2.5 hours. But the boardwalk does take almost half an hour, especially if you're letting your toddler toddle. So it took us almost 45 minutes to get there. So we had really just over an hour at the hot springs, but it was pretty good. I would say it was sufficient time, and then we kind of hoofed it back on the way back. The hot springs, it was late April. I guess I should have mentioned that we were in Tofino. There was for sure people there. Like I would say there was about always at least 10 people there while we were there, but so there was definitely people in all the pools, but it wasn't too crowded because I've heard in the summer there could be literally 50 to 100 people there. I don't even know how that would work. It would be so crowded. But overall, the hot springs is so beautiful. It starts off with a really nice waterfall coming down into it. Yes, I am pregnant as well. And then there's about 4 or 5 pools leading down to the ocean, all of varying temperatures. If you're in the lowest pool, the waves come in from the ocean, and it's super nice. My toddler loved when the waves would bring in large chunks of seaweed. And then, yeah, there's kind of like a wooden structure for changing in that has like little change rooms. Bring water shoes because it is pretty rough getting down to the hot springs, and the whole thing is like quite rocky. But overall, we loved it. Even though we had a toddler with us, it was very relaxing. Me and my husband both said we kind of felt like we had left a spa after, even though we were chasing our toddler the whole time. And just a little bit of more information about the seaplane. So the seaplane that we were in held 6 people. So there was the 3 of us, and there was 2 other people. There's no they didn't mention any sort of like limit on baggage. They do weigh your baggage, but we brought like our full-size toddler carrier hiking backpack and just another backpack, and they didn't even comment on that. What else? We brought our own earmuffs for the toddler, just we knew he was used to those ones. I believe if you don't bring your own, you probably just have to use the adult ones. And that's pretty much it. When I was inquiring about the tour, I had asked if there was any age minimum, and they said no. So you could really bring a baby of any age, and I guess also if they were under 2, then you would save money on their ticket. So yeah, I think it would be okay and manageable to do with any baby that you're comfortable kind of dipping their toes in a hot spring. So then that evening we just went back to our Airbnb, made dinner. I forgot to mention at the beginning that we actually cook all of our own food while traveling just due to allergies, so there won't be any like restaurant information or anything in this video. Anyway, and then that night we just loaded up the wagon, popped my toddler on his bike and walked to South Chesterman Beach for sunset, and even though it was a little cloudy, it was still beautiful. And that was just a small taste of what was to come. Every single night of the trip we got absolutely beautiful sunsets. It was very magical. So the next day we headed into Ucluelet. I still have no idea if I'm even saying that right. But that was actually me and my husband's first time there. It was a very small town. So we started off with the aquarium, which is actually the only thing on the trip that we probably wouldn't have done without the toddler. Everything else was like stuff we would have done anyways, even if we didn't have our toddler with us. Anyway, so the aquarium was quite small. Like, I mean, we're from Vancouver and we're used to like kind of larger aquariums, but this one, it was just one large indoor room. And then there was no like larger animals. Like there was no, I mean, obviously people don't really keep whales or anything like that in aquariums anymore, but there was no like otters, seals, anything like that. It was really cool though, because they had a lot of touch tanks where you could touch like starfish, sea anemones. There was actually some really cool sea cucumbers. That was probably my favorite part. And then after that, we did a very small hike. It was called Lighthouse Loop to Amphitrite Point. I had pretty much just looked up what hike to do, and everything online said if you're only going to do one hike in Ucluelet, to do this one. It's a portion of the Wild Pacific Trail, and they said it was the most scenic portion. It was only about 2.5 kilometers. And to be honest, this was probably the most underwhelming hike of our trip. It was kind of just like a gravel path the whole time. There was kind of maybe 4 or 5 nice viewpoints of just like really rugged coastline. But other than that, it was kind of just a little walk through the woods. I mean, we were very spoiled with hikes from where we live, so we might have overly high standards. But it was kind of nice to just check out the general area. Then we returned home for dinner again after a bit of grocery shopping. And that night we headed to Cox Bay for sunset. Literally every night of the trip we loaded up our little wagon with, luckily the Airbnb had come with a wagon full of beach toys, so every night we loaded that up and hit up a different beach, and my toddler would just play in the sand with the toys for hours. So that was definitely one of the highlights of the trip for everybody too. So day 4 we did the plane crash hike. It's a Canso bomber plane that crashed during World War II with 12 people on board, but miraculously everybody survived. So the hike is only about 5 kilometers. It leaves from the Radar Hill parking lot. It is part of the Pacific Rim National Park, so you do have to buy a parks pass, but there's like a machine in the parking lot. I think it was $12 for the family. And then yeah, the hike, I saw a lot of warnings online saying this hike is very rooty, muddy, rough. A lot of people even saying like don't carry kids or bring kids on it. But to be honest, like the muddy part was like less than a quarter of the hike. Part of it was like the first almost half of it was like a paved road turning into a gravel road, and the muddy part was really not that bad. I mean, again, we're used to like wet West Coast hiking, but for us it didn't really faze us, although we did carry the toddler in the backpack over the worst parts. And then the plane crash was actually pretty cool. Like you can kind of approach it from all different angles, and it's pretty impressive actually. We really enjoyed that hike. And then that night we hit up North Chesterman Beach, which was probably the best sunset of the entire trip. It's one of those sunsets that you literally just remember for the rest of your life. Even though it was a little chilly, it felt like we were almost in some like tropical paradise, just the way that all the colors were reflecting off the beautiful smooth sand. So the next day we decided to do a beach day because the weather was going to be sunny and I think like 24 degrees Celsius, even though it was very, very early May. So we decided to hit up Long Beach just because you can see even driving by, it's so impressively massive, just endless long sandy beaches. So we just spent the day there just kind of splashing around in the waves, playing with beach toys and stuff. It was a really nice, relaxing day. And then that evening it was still really nice, so we hit up Mackenzie Beach for the first time, which actually ended up being my favorite beach of the entire trip. It has just such a nice vibe to it. I would actually consider staying there next time we go. There was some cabins along the beach that looked super cute, and there was also a campsite right on the beach that looked beautiful. but it's just kind of like the classic Tofino vibe of like bonfires on the beach, people playing like volleyball, everything at sunset. It was so nice. We actually ended up going to that beach 3 times because we loved it so much. So the next day, which was day 6, we decided to check out Meares Island, which is the closest island to Tofino. It has some of the really popular hikes on it, one of them being Lone Cone. One of them, the one that we did, was the Old Tree Trail, which takes you to some of the most impressive, like easily accessible old growth forest in all of BC. The trails are about, the trees are about 1,500 to 2,000 years old. There's also a village on the island that you go past on the way there that has been there continuously inhabited for at least 5,000 years, which our guide told us that's one of the oldest villages in the entire history of the world, that they actually have carbon dated proof of civilization. So I thought that was pretty neat. Anyway, so we took Tofino water taxi. It was $40 per adult. Our son was free. They leave every hour. You can book it online. It's super easy to book, and the return is super chill. They literally just ask you when you get there pretty much what time you want to be picked up at, and they give you some information on like the lengths of the hikes to help you make your decision on that. One thing that I will say about the water taxi is I had planned to bring my son's own life jacket, and then I completely forgot. They didn't actually have like very small life jackets. Like I used the smallest child size on my son, and I think it was like supposed to be for like 50 pounds and up, and my son's only 30 pounds. So that was a little sketchy, especially if you show up with like an actual tiny baby. I would say definitely bring your own life jacket for that. And then as far as the Old Tree Trail, so there's 2 different options. About just under half of it is covered by a boardwalk. So if you just want to do the boardwalk portion, it's an out and back trail of about 1.5 kilometers round trip. But if you want to do the entire loop of the forest, I think it's about 4.5 kilometers. But they had told us that once you get off the boardwalk, it's super rugged the whole time you're climbing over and under logs and stuff. And we kind of knew that we didn't want to rush my toddler through it, so we decided to just do the boardwalk portion of it. So the boardwalk, it was way more rugged than the boardwalk at Hot Springs Cove. Like it was definitely a lot older. There was like missing boards. They were all like very uneven. We let my toddler walk it because he really wanted to, and it was actually really good for his practicing navigating difficult terrain. And then the trail itself was like absolutely beautiful. You're just deep in the coastal rainforest. There's probably like maybe 6 or 7 extremely large trees that are all, they have like a little plaque with their name on them and stuff. You can see some like culturally modified trees and stuff. It's really cool. I would highly recommend it. And also, even just the water taxi, it was only like maybe 15-20 minutes each way. The water taxi ride itself was very scenic. Seeing all the different like mountainous terrain around Tofino, and the drivers were also pretty awesome guides. Like they pointed out a lot of wildlife to us and like explained a lot of stuff to us. So overall, just like the water taxi experience was fun too, because we actually decided not to do a whale watching tour this time just because they were all like 3 hours and we didn't know how my toddler would do on a boat for that long. So then the last day, it was super nice weather again, and we were kind of feeling a little lazy, so we just did another beach day, this time at Mackenzie Beach. We actually spent the day there playing, and then we actually went back there again in the evening just to have another sunset there. It was only like a 3-minute drive from our Airbnb, and like I said before, we just loved the vibe. I would highly recommend at least visiting Mackenzie Beach or even staying there if you want to. And then on the last day, we left as early as we could, so we could stop as many times as we wanted. Although we actually only ended up stopping twice, just at the little Qualicum Falls Park, where we did a short hike. The hike itself was like, I don't know, it took like an hour to do the loop past 3 waterfalls. It was okay. It was, I don't know, it was kind of just like a hot, dry, dusty day. And again, on the West Coast, we're just like so spoiled by things like Lynn Canyon that like, to us, it was nothing amazing. And then we just stopped at that Coom's Goats on a Roof market just because we never had before, and we just grabbed a little bit of food for the way home. But yeah, overall, we just had an amazing week. We completely lucked out with weather. There was like not a drop of rain the entire time we were there. I actually feel kind of dumb because I actually filmed like a packing video just to kind of show some examples of like weatherproof stuff that I packed for my toddler, since we were going at the end of April, although we honestly like barely even use that stuff. We just used it some of the evenings because the weather was so nice. I actually wish that I had brought more summer clothes with us. Although I might still post that video because I think it might be helpful for people who are going in the cooler seasons. But overall, we all really liked the trip. We definitely want to go back in the future, maybe when our kids are a little bit older, just so we can do a little bit more intense adventures. Like we'd probably do the Lone Cone hike next time, which is about I think it's like 8 kilometers and like close to 800 meters of elevation gain. So we were just not really up for that right now. And then what else is there? Well, definitely getting into like surf lessons and stuff. That would be something I would want to do in the future. And then also there's something called Flores Island where there's a backpacking trail called the Wild Side Trail, which looks really cool. And they also have another, well, not really hot springs, they call it a warm springs on Flores Island that I think would be really cool to check out. But yeah, it's really just like an outdoor West Coast playground. And yeah, I hope you get a chance to check it out.